The Torah tells us that Esau made an appearance of being a nice guy, but in actuality, Esau was less than stellar. The things he did was only for show. As Rashi explains, he is considered like the swine of the forest, like the boar. Why is he considered like the swine? Because the swine, when it lies down, it puts its feet out. So you should see that it has split hoofs. It tells people, look at me, I'm kosher. But it's really a swine. And it's really a dangerous animal. As the boar is a dangerous animal. The Chazer shows its kashrus to everyone and demonstrates it. Other animals don't demonstrate it, but they are kosher. Esau tried to demonstrate his love of his father. He tried to demonstrate the fact that he was getting married at the same age as his father. He was doing things just like his father. But the Torah tells us that his wives, in the plural, were rebellious. And they rebelled against everything that Yitzchok and Rivka stood for. And in fact, according to one of the interpretations of the blindness of Yitzchok, was that Yitzchok was blinded by the smoke of the sacrifices of Esau's wives. The explanation being that it was so offensive to him, he didn't want to see it. And when a tzaddik doesn't want to see something, he loses his ability to see. This happened with the Rebbe Marash, that for a while he had lost his hearing in an ear. And they tried to figure out what caused it, because there was nothing physically wrong with him. And then he reminded himself that once in the middle of reciting a mimer, reciting a Hasidic discourse, there had been some noise from some children on one side of the apartment, and he didn't want to disrupt anyone or tell people to be silent, so he decided that he wasn't going to hear it. And when a tzaddik decides that he won't hear from that side, he doesn't hear. And he hadn't turned the hearing back on. And so when he decided to turn the hearing back on, he was able to hear from that side. So Yitzchok turned off his ability to see because he did not want to see his daughters-in-law worshiping idols. And so Yitzchok was blind, and he invites his son Esau to make food for him, and he would eat from the food and derive pleasure from his son, and through that pleasure, that would create the channel for him to be able to bless his son, and bless him with permanent blessings of mastery over his family, and the initial blessing was to make Esau a master over Jacob. And of course, we know that Rivka objected to this, and Rivka got Jacob to pretend that he was Esau and to get the blessings that were supposed to be for Esau in an underhanded way. And the question is, how is she allowed to do that? The answer, God told her in a prophecy, V'rav ya'avod tza'ir, the elder must serve the younger. And therefore, since this was something that God had told her in a prophecy, and she was not allowed to communicate this to Yitzchok, so Yaakov had no other choice but to make himself like Esau to get these blessings. The blessings were supposed to be for him. But Yitzchok did not see that. Yitzchok saw that the blessings should go to Esau. He's the older. And somehow or other, Yaakov would be appeased because Yaakov was religious and he would just accept it. Rivka knew that the blessings could not go to Esau. They had to go to Yaakov because Yaakov had to be on top. Okay, so Yaakov gets the blessings in a deceitful way. And we could say that that's the reason for receiving them in a deceitful way, is because he's the paradigm for the survival of his people. We had to survive the rules of law, the so-called law of the Roman Empire, Persian Empire, Parthian Empire, Muslim Empire, Christian countries, Crusades, the Almohades, all of the restrictive laws of the Middle Ages come up until now, all of the pogroms and the Holocaust, as well as the force of the Muslim world trying to destroy Israel and trying to destroy Jews all over the world, forcing Jews to convert for 1,300 years. All of those forces released against the Jews were by virtue of law. They had the authority of being the law of the land. And the only way we could survive was by guile. We had to manipulate our survival with our wits. And so somehow or other we manipulated it so that we could survive. That's the only way we could survive. The law designated or was established to destroy and eradicate Judaism. Judaism was not an official religion under the Christian world. It was only tolerated by the Muslims. But whenever a Jewish father died, and he had minor children, they would run to take the children away. Because the only reason why they weren't Muslims because of the father. Now that the father was dead, they could take the children and make them Muslim. And that's what they did over and over again, to thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of children. That's why there are so few Jews in the Middle East, despite the fact that we are among the oldest tribes, among the oldest nations in the world. There should be as many Jews as Indians or as Chinese. There aren't even a fraction of that. We're just a blip on the scale of numbers, 1/5 of 1%. But how did that 1/5 of 1% survive? We survived by guile. And therefore, Yaakov had to get the blessings by guile because we had to survive by guile. But the question is, didn't Yitzchok see who Esau really was? Why would he want to give Esau the blessings? So let me tell you what I think. Yitzchok saw potential in everything. Yitzchok was a businessman. He saw a piece of land. Other people saw it as a terrible piece of land. He saw it as an opportunity to create life, to create a business. He saw the opportunities in everything that people thought were no good. He made a life and a career out of transforming rotten land into great investments. He found hidden wells where there was no water. He found materials that could be used for construction, for all matters of life, in the most remote areas. The Torah says he was involved v'avuda rabba. He had many different kinds of businesses. He saw opportunities where others just saw disaster. And therefore, he was successful 100 times as much as people anticipated. So he saw the potential in everything where people had given up. So he saw the potential in Esau. And Esau had great potential. Esau was smart. Esau was charming. Esau was strong. He was charismatic. A charmer from Charmersville. A Bill Clinton before there was Bill Clinton. He was smart, charming, dashing, and a risk taker. He was a warrior, a hunter. Could have been a star athlete, a star football player, a star boxer, a star... He could have been anything he wanted. Esau had all the potential. Yaakov, on the other hand, didn't have that kind of potential. Yaakov was just your really good guy, a guy you could always rely on, the guy who was there on time. He was the first guy to daven, the last person to leave the study hall. He studied and made sure he knew everything by heart. But he was so predictable. He didn't have the spontaneity, the creativity, the breadth, the potential of creating something from nothing as Esau did. And so Yitzchok wanted to harness this potential, this ability to create, this ability to do things that nobody else can do, the ability to charm, the ability to transform, the ability to take things from nothing and make billionaires, billions out of them. He wanted the Zuckerbergs, he wanted the Bill Gateses. Esau was bigger than all of them, more potential than all of them. So what was the problem? Yitzchok saw potential. He saw all the good that was in the potential, but he did not see the evil. When a person is creative and uses his creative abilities in a negative way, that person's creative abilities are a liability. All of Zuckerberg's, I forgot his first name, all of his innovation in creating Facebook, creating all of the platforms for communication, all the good that it did, pale in the face of the evil that his company puts upon the minds and hearts of others. He has a screwed up moral system. What was and truly is immoral, he considers as present-day reality. And what is principled, truly principled, that great people held so in the past, he considers immoral. And he considers it improper to communicate in today's day and age. He is for transgender rights. He is for Black Lives Matter. He is for abortion on demand and against the traditional values of the Judeo-Christian ethic. Those who support the traditional values are considered immoral and highly unsavory for the platforms that he's allowed, and therefore doesn't allow their communications, especially if they become popular. God forbid somebody should go ahead and tout the effectiveness of hydroxychloroquine. Yours truly had a video that was going viral touting the benefits of hydroxychloroquine and how it did not cause any harm to those who had atrial fibrillation, for which I have, and therefore I know personally that it was a lie. What was popularized, that atrial fibrillation or people having arrhythmias would be in danger by using hydroxychloroquine, is a bald-faced lie. And I was forced to take that video off because some politician didn't like it because it might help Donald Trump become reelected. That's how sick these people are, because the truth is hydroxychloroquine could have saved lives. So Zuckerberg, with all the good that he has done with his creative ability to create the platforms of communication, has caused incalculable harm to the morality and the principles upon which this country is based. Because he has no moral compass. His moral compass is whatever Democrats say is moral. Not all Democrats, some Democrats. Esau had no moral compass. His morality was do what you feel like doing, worry about the consequences later. That's part of the sexual revolution. That's the ideology that drives people to demand transgender rights. Transgender rights is a crock. It's a false narrative. And it sets a premise that gender is something that's a choice, when it truly isn't. The DNA of a male is male all the way through. It's a fact of genetics. Same for a female. There exists androgynies, which is a freak of nature, where the person is bisexual, has both genes. And usually it is damaging because the androgynies cannot bear children for the most part. In some instances they can, but it's rare. Or it's destructive. And this is a destructive movement, but I'm not going to focus on that. What I'm focusing on is the potential. People talk about how great the potential of certain people are. But if that person reaches his potential and does not have a moral compass, then all that potential will be used for harm, not for the greater good of mankind. And that's what Rivka saw that Yitzchok failed to see, because Yitzchok could not see the evil. Because he only saw the potential, he didn't see the face of Esau in reality. The real Esau was a gangster with a smile, a politician, a charmer, and a good liar. And Yitzchok only saw the potential good that he could do. Rivka, on the other hand, was familiar with evil. She had a brother, a charmer, a liar, who knew how to charm you out of your money and claim that it was justified. She knew what Esau was like, because Esau was just like her family. And she realized this could not be. Esau could not get the blessings, and God told her as much. Only if the leadership was by Jacob, who had a moral compass, only then could the potential of Esau be realized for good. And that's the reason for this episode of the Torah. Esau is great potentially, but only when led by Jacob. If Esau is the leader, then God help us all.